Hello and welcome to our show. It's State Control Britain and it's 6:55 live. Hello, Jonathan.
Hey,
Hello,
Stephen,
Jonathan.
how's it going?
Yeah, it's going very well. Thank you very much. Thanks for asking. Yeah, that was fun doing that, wasn't it? You in your pants and me dancing.
Yeah, I had to
Right.
AI that one a little bit just to make it a bit more fun, but it did look a lot like you. From a distance, you wouldn't have thought it was AI.
No, it was amazing. Yeah, thank you for doing that. We got some few people in the room. DC Rebuilding, morning lads. Good morning to you. Lorraine saying love the new logo. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. We've got Joe's Sleep and Slim Down Journey. Hey, DC. That's good. Good afternoon from Cordelia from Albany, NY. Here in the kitchen attempting homemade carnivore bars this afternoon. Good for you. Excellent. Morning all. Raining here, so not going for a bike ride yet. That's Ben. There's some carnivore muscles put in a hello. That's great. I'm in the fascist state of NSW. That's Ben. And no carb barb. Hi, everyone. Yeah, hello. That's good. So if you want to ask a question, you can. You just put it in the chat and we would appreciate that. Put a QQQ in front of it if you can, which would be very handy. And you can do a super chat if you want to do a super chat. That helps support the channel remarkably. So how's your week been, Jonathan?
Not bad, thanks, actually. I've had quite a strange week. In terms of news, it's been quite interesting. So I had some weird blood test results come back. I've got superhuman kidney filtration function, which is great. I also got I've got basically a leak in my, what do you call it, like a proteinuria leak sort of thing. I've had that since 2017, so it seems more like a underlying long-term thing that I'll have to just deal with and keep track of trends over time. But other than that, my body is working at a pretty decent level considering. Other than that, yeah, not much going on. How about you? You've been busy with work and things and new groups?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was quite surprised and a little bit flattered, actually, that we've had 308 members, I think, since the 1st of January. Let me just check. 310 now. So I think it's one of the fastest building groups on school. So that's really, really good. Lots of nice people. Had Nina Taichow on the podcast yesterday. Put that video out today. And the one with Zoe went out, and I've got Sean Baker next week. Another one with Sally Norton. So, coming thick and fast, which is really good. I'm looking forward to Sean, and then David Unwin in February. So I think some nice people from in and around the medical profession, both in the UK and sort of in the States. And obviously my daily or weekly thing with Dave Mack. So I get my views from Japan from him, which is interesting. He was saying about carnivore in Japan. It's difficult to be carnivore in Japan because one of the things that they live by is not standing out, not being different. And they actually have a phrase, which is something like you bang down anything, you hammer down anything that's standing out, so you're all the same. And so that was pretty interesting as well for me, because I didn't realize it was difficult in Japan because they have so much meat. I mean, I went there, I was lucky enough to actually go and experience it firsthand, but of course I'm a tourist, so that was fine, absolutely fine for me to have a load of meat, but I didn't consider it. Maybe that's an arrogant Western tourist from an actual Japanese person, because wow, I mean, I wasn't even carnivore then. That was in my keto phase, and I wish I could go back because I would really love all the meats there. Have you traveled anywhere where you've found it interesting?
Yeah, I mean, just from hearing from you now, and obviously DC Rebuilding is in the chat, lives that sort of way. I would love to go to Japan. If I was thinking as a person my age looking to do something, a trip of a lifetime, it'd probably be Japan, just for the culture aspect of it, because it'd be so different to anything else I'd experience. But in regards to where I've actually been, where I found it quite interesting, not in a good way, unfortunately, is actually Poland. You can't get good meat in Poland from what I've seen. Now you might be able to some places, I imagine, yeah, like anywhere. But when I went there, it's all pork. Everything is pork, 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 pork. And I went to this one place, and I was looking for the menu with my brother actually. He was actually vegetarian at the time, and I just ate chicken and beef. I don't eat pork. We're looking for like back then. This must have been 2016 or something. Maybe 2017. We're looking for a pizza joint. We thought we'll get cheese and tomato pizza. We can't go too wrong there. At least then we've got something to eat, you know. He actually ordered something which was written out like a vegetana pizza or something like that. Vegetana, you know. And I went for something which I knew what the word for chicken was. So I thought, well, chicken should be all right there. Anyway, ended up with a nice cheesy chicken pizza, which isn't too bad. And he ended up with like the meat feast of all things. So I mean, I could have just picked off the meat, but obviously he's vegetarian sort of thing. So really, we should have switched it somehow. But yeah, that's the worst place I've been to in regards to like food intake for like meat stuff. The best place, funny enough, I'd have to say was actually Cuba, because everything they have there is grown there, sourced there. They're not having shipments of like chicken from Thailand or, you know, the EU or anything like that. What you get in your plate from a hotel, generally speaking, is going to be what's produce from that area. You think they're not wealthy people, so they're not going to be wasteful with their feed, things like that. They're going to sort of make sure their animals are kept well tended, sort of thing. Lots of fish as well. So Cuba for me was the go-to.
Yeah, brilliant. The other thing I was going to ask you about, Jonathan, is you keep your light under a bushel, is your nutritional qualifications, actually, because you are a nutritionist. I think most people think of you as the bodybuilder, but I like having you on because you talk about, or in the chat, for instance, you'll talk about, you know, supplements, or you talk about nutritional things that you've looked at in the past. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I've actually been in some way or another studying nutrition since I was about 14 years old, since I literally joined the gym. I decided to get my qualification. I graduated in 2018. Same qualification him has, and also Professor Barkay. Obviously, they've got additional qualifications, but we've got the same nutritional certification in that specific regard. So, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed learning through that, but it's more of a gateway into the other stuff. As in, I learned the useful tools around biochemistry, biology, genetics, food law, things which are like relevant in our sort of carnivore space. And it's actually through people like yourself, you know, Sean Baker, Dr. Chiefy, Professor Barkay. So people that have actually delved in a bit deeper into their own niches, I've actually picked up more useful information. So I'd say that's where a lot of my background comes from, nutrition. And I work with people all over the globe to help improve their health, body composition. I kind of went a slightly, I mean, ultimately, Stephen, you and I have quite a similar background, that we're both fit kind of people into like that element of health, being in shape sort of thing. Obviously, you've done bodybuilding in the past. I'm currently doing it. But I guess the main thing that separates us, you know, in some sense, is your specialism in phlebotomy and blood tests and understanding the metrics around that. I mean, I could give you an idea, but I don't understand it in the nuanced depth that people like yourself would. So, yeah, well, how come you sort of directed towards that yourself then? Have interest more the blood work side?
Because I'm one of those people that likes the evidence of my own eyes, and so I was an advanced personal trainer, and I wanted to go further. And I think I bored people with this story before, but I had an athlete who was a type 1 diabetic, and she wanted to get to the Olympics as a javelin thrower. And between us, we learned that what I'd been taught to help her really wasn't going to help her, because she lived it. And this is why I'm always saying the people with the condition are the expert, because she lived it and she was an athlete. And I realized I needed to be super qualified for this. So that's why I did the specialist practitioner status in obesity and diabetes, because I wanted to go into it quite deep. Looking back now, that was a good thing to do. But to get to the point that you just alluded to, was I also set up a private blood testing lab, because her bloods were interesting, and I had a client who was interested in it, and so we set that up, and I got qualified in phlebotomy, hematology, basically, and we were getting bloods and we were getting doctors' comments that were remote. They didn't see the people, and constantly the athletic, muscly people were getting these terrible comments, which we know is partly like the BMI would be bad because you've got more muscle than the average, and protein, EGFR, which we know is very bad if you eat even slightly more protein than the average. So there are all these little anomalies, and I thought, well, I need to really know about this. I really want to get into this. So that's what I did. I just studied and studied, and then realized that the normative ranges were problematic. They didn't have any context. It didn't have any nuances. And then actually go into the labs. So, for instance, I knew how they actually got the HbA1c reading, because even in my early days with people doing finger pricking, it became very prevalent when we had continual glucose monitors, but people were finger pricking and saying the HbA1c doesn't match what's actually happening. I'm writing down. So in those days, I do sound like an old fart, but diabetes has changed dramatically. It was still rare when I started. That was only 16 years ago. And people would have books where they would, log down their daily blood glucose, and then you could add it up on a calculator and get an average. And it never matched the HbA1c of these fit people that were reducing carbohydrates. And I had people on Atkins, they didn't call it carnivore. So I got into that. And then the misdiagnosis of people who had hemolytic anemia. So the HbA1c was artificially low. And I had a very good tutor. He just said, you can pretty much look and see that person is diabetic, to be honest. That doesn't seem right. So we need to test them for hemolytic anemia, which was the reticulocyte count and other tests. And it just, you're the same as me. It's got to make sense. It's got to make sense. So if you have one person that doesn't quite fit, okay, there's something there that we don't know. You get 10 people, you start thinking, well, hang on a minute, there's something here. And then when you get to 100, you know that there is something way off. And that's why I got into it. And I never settle. So when they said, it's the HbA1c is a calculation, and I'd say, well, can I do the calculation? And it was only really 6 years ago that I felt, after I'd got to 1,000 clients, right, I've got enough data now to say that this is rubbish. I know this is rubbish. And I guarantee, if you've got the people that were talking about HbA1c being slightly high and it's a problem, I think if you actually said to them, can you tell me what machine measures it and how they calculate it, they wouldn't know. And I think I'm a lover of the phrase that Einstein came up with. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. And that's it. I think you've got to know it so much that you can make it really simple. And essentially, all that stuff is simple. So, yeah, I just got interested in that. And, so that's how that happened. And then obviously I wanted an honours degree in physiology and health sciences to go with it, for the credibility side of things. So I did that as well. And it was funny because I was on, I think it's 5 Minute Body or something like that in her group, her private group. And she said, oh, you got a lot of skills. And I said, I've got a particular set of skills. I can test your blood. I can test your breath. I will find you and I will make you not fat, like the Liam Nielsen thing. So anyway, I think it's helpful. Yes, you're right. You see, because you've come back with a supplement knowledge, bodybuilding knowledge, nutritional knowledge, but also you never settle. If someone says something, which is, the good and the bad side of both of us, if it's someone you trust and you did, well, that doesn't sound right, you'll go, that doesn't sound right. You'll say that. So I think that's good. I don't want this to be an echo chamber. I want people to learn and get their question answered. Just a couple of people just to say,
yeah,
I hope I get Dr. Paul Mason on. I'd love to get Dr. Paul Mason on. I have no contact with Dr. Paul Mason at all. But I would really like that as well. I think I've got the phrase here. Nail that sticks up gets hammered down. That was what Dave Mack was telling me. Definitely. Yes. Right. Should we do a question?
Yeah. Let's do a question.
Yes. Right. The new member? Sorry, new member. Mary Patani, 2008 is a new member. Welcome, new member.
Welcome.
Excellent. welcome. Ben is asking, does a carnivore diet reduce the dopamine produced by the brain? Is that why carb cravings get intense?
That's a good question, isn't it? I mean, I think our answers for this one are going to be speculative at best. My kind of first thought is we can't really measure dopamine in the brain. We can measure brain activity associated with certain hormones, which are typically produced in response to a stimulus, but we're not going to have an exact, like, this person has 4 units of dopamine, this person has 5 units, therefore they're more like this and they're more like that. We can't really test it. Then also you're going to have to work out, obviously, the baseline level, the default level that was produced by brain. Other things as well, I mean, this is, again, speculative, but if we look at different medications which are said to increase dopamine levels, we'll know that it's very hard to find a reference range for this because people have different responses to different drugs. So there might be a dopamine agonist sort of drug or amino acid, and that will take you so far, but how that has different interplay with other hormones that are used in the brain is going to be quite a hard one to sort of pin down. So that's the limitation of identifying it anyway. But if I was to guess, I would say, generally speaking, carnivores will have more of a homeostatic, equal kind of dopamine level, in my opinion. But just because we're not having the highs of an extreme lifestyle, we try to be low stress people, try to be, considerate to the environment, things like that. We're quite a cohesive kind of community compared to a lot of people in different spaces. Like, we sort of stand for the same thing, same principles. So therefore, we're not going to be as dopamine chasing or dopamine hunting in terms of our disposition. That's my thought. And maybe there's some sensitivity kind of relationship as well between, like, how dopamine receptive we are. So yes, it's a tough one to pin down, but that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I think let me just get the question in front of me so I can read it properly and give you an answer. Yeah. Carb cravings getting intense really is more about situation and cues as well, and other things outside of just biochemistry. So my example, well, firstly, dopamine is the motivation hormone. It's the thing that makes you want to go and do something. So Pavlov's dogs, for instance, this was the first experiment where it was realized that how the experiment worked was food would be given to the dog, but they would ring a bell before that, and then they would give the dog food. And it got to the point where the dog would salivate at the ringing of the bell. So the motivation, the anticipation for the food was all that was needed. It wasn't the food itself. And we have since learned that when you get the food, so when the dog gets the food, because we've now got better techniques, actually the dopamine at that point is not raised. It is raised at the motivation point, the go-get point. And this explains why sometimes you think, well, I used to have XYZ food. Oh, I can't wait to try that. I've just seen that. I'm gonna go off track. And then when you have it, it's really disappointing because actually it was the motivation that was high, not the thing. And so you also have to look at what drives you to do those things. So you have to learn new behaviors. So the one I use, which is a real world one, was I used to go to the movies a lot. There's nothing worth seeing anymore, so that's helped in a little bit. But when I first went carnivore, I did used to go to the movies, and I always fancied a popcorn and a Coke, right? That was it, and a hot dog. And I just thought about this. I thought, well, in no other part of my life, I've never been anywhere in my life and thought, I need popcorn, a hot dog, and a Coke. So it was definitely situational. So I had to relearn a new thing. And my wife, being very clever, she just got a Ziploc bag. She cooked up some bacon, made it beautiful, cut it all up so it was really easy to eat, and actually a mineral water. It was great. We had to obviously sneak it in. I know when you go to the movies, you have to take a mortgage out to get the food, but so it worked out cheaper for us and it was more beneficial. But I learned this new thing. Now, part of that, and I was slightly joking, was also that having it over on the man. I've got it in, and I'm not paying a concession fee. I'm not paying £15 to eat during the movie. And then I also realised, going a step further, why am I even eating in a movie? Do I really need to do that? So when you've got cravings, you've got to look at what triggered it, try and work out an alternative that is just as fun or just as enjoyable, and you should be all right. But it's a great question. Thank you, Ben, for that. It's really good. Super chat. That is really good. Juliet, lovely to spend a bit of time this Sunday afternoon with you gentlemen. That's very kind of you, Juliet. Thank you. Right, let's do the next question. Polish Mike. Can cold weather dehydrate people without realizing it? I donated blood yesterday and I passed out on the chair after nurse removed the needle. I'm a frequent donor, but this has never happened before. Do you want me to answer that first, Jonathan?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having some internet connection issues. I can hear you okay, but sometimes it's like dropping. So it's like pause. I'm like, I don't want to interrupt you when you're speaking, sort of thing.
Oh, okay, no worries. So do you want me to do that question first, or do you want to?
You take it first. Yeah, just like
Yeah. Cold weather does dehydrate you. That's definitely the question is, without you realizing it, which is absolutely true. So you don't have a sweating sensation, so you don't have your first cues go a little bit, and you also get the cold will induce your kidneys to dump a little bit of fluid to keep them warmer, because you're breathing cold air, so you lose moisture from your lungs. So it's all over a problem. And then also you've got the increased metabolic demand because you're heating up. Your body is trying to heat. So that will change your blood volume. And yes, fainting is a sign of being underhydrated or undernourished. When I did take bloods, in all that time, in 10 years, I only had 3 people faint on me. They were all vegan, just coincidental. So, yep, it is a sneaky dehydrator for definite. If you're going out and that is a worry for you, and definitely when you're giving blood, don't forget, because that is taking out fluid from you. So your concentration of everything goes up a little bit. So, yeah, I would say, yeah, that definitely happened. Did you want to add a bit, Jonathan?
Yeah, what I'd really say is I had a very similar experience about 3 weeks ago. I was leaning forward over the edge of my bed to like stretch my lower back out a little bit. I think I must have been dehydrated, and it's also a funny time of the day. So it was like I just woken up or something. So my blood pressure wasn't quite calibrated, so to speak. Like if you've ever been lying down for a long time, you get up and you're like, oh, that's a bit much. So anyway, I leant forward, stretched my back a little bit. Then I blacked out. I kid you not, I literally blacked out. I'd estimate maybe 20 seconds. I hit my head on the corner of a cupboard door thing, like a wooden thing. That fell off, and I kind of woke up about 3 seconds into me like shaking everywhere, sort of thing. And everything around me was like all over, and I was like, "What the hell just happened?" But then I measured my blood pressure, my heart rate. My heart rate was 150, so I was obviously in a stressed out state. So yeah, I mean, it sounds, Mike, to me like you've had some sort of similar experience. Fortunately, you're with a nurse, I imagine, so it wasn't that you're in any danger. But I second what Stephen said. It could be all sorts of things related to that, and you can only be so prepared as well when they ask you for these blood donations and tests. I mean, if it's at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, I mean, you're really going to wake up at like 4 or 5 to hydrate overnight. It's yeah, it could be that. It might not be, but if you are concerned, I get it checked out, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. Right, let's get to the next question, which is about insulin, actually. So let's have a look. So I think I missed it. Sorry about that. Is there a blood test offered by the GPs, general practitioners, which is what we call doctors in the UK, to show the level of insulin? Seems crazy to wait for people to be at pre-diabetic stage when knowing the insulin could save us sooner. Absolutely, yes. It's literally called fasted insulin. So that's the test. You also get what's called C-peptide, which just stands for connected peptide. In the vesicle, as insulin is produced, in that vesicle is also the C-peptide connected, as it says. And then when that is released into the bloodstream, the half-life of insulin is much shorter than that of the C-peptide, which is why C-peptide is a good marker, good proxy marker for the production of insulin, as well as a fasted insulin. You could also look at fasted blood glucose, which which just gives you a nice little triad of numbers to be able to contemplate what's going on in your body. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that was one of the things that we found, because I was lucky enough to be in a lab that did a lot of research, and I do miss that. And only a couple of weeks ago, I was asked if I wanted to go back into one of the labs and help out, because I was a bit of a sort of, I need to know the answer to this. I need to know the answer to that. And I think they sort of liked it. But anyway, we were finding that those people that did do the fasted insulin would discover that, and the C-peptide, that their insulin production was actually pretty high. So we could plot a graph. So if your blood glucose looks great in its sort of average, whether that might be 5.2 millimoles, 100 milligrams per deciliter if you're in America, and it's like that all day, well, that doesn't mean everything's fine, because we also need to know how much insulin is required to get you to that reading. And that was actually what we were seeing year in, year out with some of the people that were coming back, because, it was a research lab, that we could predict diabetes problems, or carbohydrate intolerance is actually a better word for it, 5 years previous. And we could say, you're eating a lot of carbs and your body is now beginning to struggle. It's making more insulin to get the same result. It's really simple and nuanced. And I think if we could have a meter that was measuring insulin rather than continual glucose meter, I think that would be really handy. I know that's difficult. And we now have in Germany continual ketone meters, which is a step in the right direction. Glucose and ketones being measured, but insulin would be the real kicker, because that would be so helpful to have those three things. But it's a simple test. It's unlikely an NHS doctor would actually let you have that test. You probably would have to do that privately, I think.
Yeah, a lot of these tests, guys, are very expensive. They're not accessible as much in the UK. I know in the US you got is it Quest and all these different labs and things. Over here we're quite limited, so unless you're going to be paying £200 plus, you're not going to get these more specific kind of blood marker tests. What I might suggest doing is, obviously, understanding blood tests is quite a craft. It's quite a skill in itself. It's not something the layperson's going to really get in the context of, one, what metrics are important, two, what does the outcome data say, three, how do we know what kind of what kind of ranges we're looking at, because also we have the carnivore diet, which comes into play as well, which impacts how someone might read a short or a long-term outcome. For example, HbA1c might be different now for someone that starts carnivore diet versus how it is in 3 months down the line. So there's a lot to unpack, and I might just suggest to anyone, if they're actually listening to me speak right now, to actually go onto Amazon, check out Stephen's blood workbook. Might be in his links below, actually. I think it's like £8, £10 or something. It's something like is it like Carnivore Diet Blood Work? What's the book called again? Sorry.
Yeah, the Guide to Blood Tests in the context of low carb, keto, and carnivore. So
yeah, I'd recommend looking at that. Yeah,
thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, right. So let's get to the next question. That's very kind of you, Jonathan, by the way. Blood test offered. Right. There was another question here which I like to do in the order that it came up. Someone asked about the
I'm like that as well.
vasovagal triggers. So let's put that on. I will find it and super slick this. Question? Yeah, it was something about the vasovagal vagal trigger. Right. Okay. I can't find it. Can you see it? We did the cold weather one. My brother is Japanese. Oh, here we go. Polish, Mike. Yes. Okay. Any other ideas on what could have triggered this vasovagal reaction? But that's basically a known phenomena. So when the needle goes in, that can actually just trigger it on its own. In fact, kids, when you were taking blood on one side, and also when you're injecting people, which I didn't do actually. So, I was only taking, I was never giving. If they're really worried, then you do something over the other side, tap them or get them to look over here, and then you do that. So they're not seeing the needle go in. The other thing is that many people, because they're scared of needles or scared of that procedure, they either take a lot of breath holding, or they have like shallow breath. So you have to be very aware that they're doing that. Because many people do actually take the rules properly and they fast for 8 to 12 hours. Some people don't even do that. They're not used to not having carbs in the morning. They're not used to having their cereal. So that would be a problem. I know that isn't you, Polish Mike, but there you go. Simple things, if you haven't slept the night before, again, that could be because you're worried about having blood taken or whatever. If there's any sort of background stress, so the reason people give blood in a particular situation and environment is for those reasons. So there's not that problem. If it's too hot, that's it. If the phlebotomist technique is really bad, that can cause a problem. The worst phlebotomist I ever saw was a doctor, and it was blood coming out all over the place. So, I wouldn't now take blood unless it was a group of friends first in our practice, because you get out of practice and you really need to, have a steady hand and not be worried about it. But, I want to be match fit if I was doing it, so I would practice again. But it's an interesting thing because for some people it is very scary. So it's nothing to be ashamed of, having a little faint. Right. Here's a good one for you, Jonathan. Why do you think sleep improves going from low carb to carnivore? I noticed a huge improvement. That's from Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer. You're right. Yeah, I think everyone says this. I mean, what I notice typically is people will often sleep less. It might be patchy at the start. Then they kind of default into it. So where they might have slept for 8 hours before, but they wake up kind of tired still. Now they might sleep for about 5 or 6 hours, but they wake up ready to go, sort of thing. My first thought has always been this, and it's been this for quite a few years. I think, one, we're reducing the oxidative load in the body, therefore we don't need as much detox action. We detox to the greatest capacity when we're asleep. So I think that phase of our, was it level 2? Phase 2 liver detoxification. That sort of like time bracket when you're asleep is probably shorter. That's what I'm going to think. A lot of people as well, they experience better REM sleep and deep sleep. So it means the sleep they're actually getting, that's more restorative, is actually better. So that's probably the biggest thing I'd think of. Outside of that, I think people on a carnivore diet, they've got more stable blood sugar, less likely sort of to have blood sugar swings throughout the night. I mean, when I was eating a carbohydrate-rich diet, I'd sometimes wake up in the night and have like a shake with a little pot of rice pudding or something. I wasn't really hungry, but it's like I had to eat something, as if I felt depleted, even though I knew I wasn't, because I was I was about 20 stone or 125 kilos or something stupid. So yeah, that's kind of my thought towards it. I think, I mean, this is something I do myself, and it's not medical advice. If I'm struggling to sleep, I do use a stack of peptides. They're focused more towards increasing REM sleep quality, just improve the sleep architecture overall. What else? Keeping blood sugar more stable through the night, reducing cramping, any symptoms I might get from being still throughout the night, perhaps through pain. And one thing I actually found the most useful for actually improving sleep quality was glutathione. So I use injectable glutathione some days, some nights. We obviously secrete a great amount of that when we're asleep. So it seems to be, if we're getting upregulated glutathione output, and we're actually supplementing it as well, let alone just on the carnivore diet, it's probably going to give you more restorative sleep just as a whole. But what do you think, Stephen? Is there anything really else? I mean, there's probably a bit more to it, but...
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, you covered all the bases, which is really good. I mean, if you do the joined up thinking, because you're not having what you said about the minerals and stuff like that, if you're not having the phytates to block the absorption, so that's, it's just holistic. It's everything, isn't it? Because you're not having sweeteners, because even sweeteners can affect your gut microbiome and sleep architecture. You're probably having less histamine reactions, less, like I say, less phytates blocking absorption. You've probably got a better gut. That's probably healing because you've removed things like fiber, which would block absorption, and also the leaky gut or your tight junctions are more tight. So the things that you are ingesting, you're getting more bang for your buck. You know, most people in the carnivore space are anti-seed oils. So that is going to reduce the amount of inflammatory omega-6s as well. So, you know, there is so much that the carnivore does, you know, across the board. It's really fascinating, I think. So, yeah, brilliant. So let's have a look at the next question. I think you answered that brilliantly, to be honest. So let's, oh yes, I wanted, there's a few people asking about my school group. So I just want to quickly just share the screen so people can find us and find out what's going on. So if you're interested in the Common Sense Carnivore group that I set up, this is what it looks like. The discussion board is exactly what it says. So you can discuss things. If you want to join, there's a link in the description. And also you can use the QR code in the top left-hand side of the screen. So that's what you get, the community. So lots and lots of questions, but also there's a classroom where we do weekly live Q&As, and also they get played back. And there's my Substack article library. So you click on that. And if you're in New Zealand, for instance, people don't want to tell Big Brother that they're looking at Substacks. So that's a way around that. There's a course there for low carb diet and carnivore diet. There's sort of premium content as well, talking about bloods in more detail, so you can get really trained up. The archive is a good one because that's videos I did at least 6 years ago to show I'm consistent and saying the same things as I did 6 years ago. Carnivore defense, that's if people are wheeling out the myths. Oh, red meat causes cancer. You can print them off or show your friends or family or whatever. Environmental stuff, talking about things beyond what you eat. Yeah, that's one of the courses there. So it's really simple. I mean, you just click on it and, you know, there you go. There's a thing about the fiber con. There's a thing about the heart disease and LDL, the connection there. So it's really simple to navigate. And stuff about thyroid. There's lots of ebooks, all free to download. And we've introduced free Pilates sessions. So if you want to do Pilates, there's loads of videos there for you to follow. That's my lovely Jane that's provided people with those. And if you want to pay for the premium content, there's also my sort of workout thing, but you can also get workout advice from Jonathan. So that's it. And then calendar, all our Q&A. So for instance, I did one on Monday, did one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, did my Friday one with Dave Mack. And look, here on Sunday, I did one at 6 o'clock before I came on here. Then I did this wonderful one with Jonathan. And then at 8 o'clock, after this finishes, you can join and get the most out of the group. So that is what it's all about. I'll put a link in the chat. I'll do that once we get to the next question.
I'll put it in mine as well.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. So yeah, this is the next question.
Yeah.
I can't pronounce that name. I'm sorry. Getting some bloods
the
tomorrow.
Substack's really good, by the way, guys. The articles that Stephen's got in the school group, it's worth it just for those, to be honest. So,
oh, thank you.
You carry on. Sorry.
That's all right. Getting some bloods tomorrow because of high blood pressure, 150/90. Depends how old you are. I don't think that's particularly high, but anyway, which didn't lower after 8 months on carnivore. Any tips for important markers apart from the insulin stuff, etc.? Well, yeah, if you're worried about blood pressure, I would firstly do some research on age-related blood pressure, because I don't think that's particularly high. I think that might be appropriate for you. It's not a doctor's advice. I'm just saying, if you look up age-related blood pressure ranges, they are much more interesting. Why should we all be 120/80? That doesn't make any sense to me, you know? So anyway, that's the first thing. I would definitely look at fasted insulin, as we talked about, and fasted glucose. HSCRP, which is a high-sensitive C-reactive protein, which is a protein that is in your body if you're inflamed. Fibrinogen, which I rarely mention, but if you're worried about blood pressure, that's not a bad thing to do. Homocysteine, uric acid. Okay, uric acid is a very poor predictor of gout, just as a by the by. From dealing with lots and lots of people, I saw so many bloods where the uric acid was high and they had no gout, and low levels of uric acid and people had gout. So that's it. If you're looking at kidney function, I wouldn't do an EGFR. I would do a cystatin C. I know it's got the statin word in it. It's not medication, but that is a better test because it's not affected by protein in your diet. You could do the albumin to creatinine ratio. which might be thrown out because of the protein diet. Electrolytes normally are good: sodium, potassium, magnesium. What else did they ask? That there is a lot of stuff. I've just lost Jonathan as well for some reason. I think his Wi-Fi is down a bit. Thyroid, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, 3T3, 3T4 is pretty good. If you want to go further, you can go reverse T3. Lipids are good. Triglycerides, HDL, excellent. So that's it. But I think the priority, if you're worried about blood pressure, is like I say, high sensitive CRP, homocysteine, and the cystatin C, and maybe the electrolytes, especially potassium and magnesium. Do you want to add on that, Jonathan? Because I think you'd be able to. Now you're back.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest foundational things that you're going to be doing are the things that Stephen just mentioned, to be honest. Outside of that, there's a few supplements you could look at, like taurine, for example. Ensuring good sleep quality. So one thing you might do for that is to try and find. Yeah, I can't really give you my protocol. Basically, before you go to bed, you don't want to be overly heavy or overly hydrated. The more sort of blood volume you have beyond what you actually need at that point in time. So if say you start your morning and you're 100 kilos, just end your day, you're 105 kilos. That's 5 kilos more your body has to deal with on your heart at nighttime. So that means perhaps don't have that high sodium cheesecake takeaway meal, kebab sort of thing. That'd be the key point for me. If I had a number of in terms of blood pressure, and I thought it was too high, my thought would be decrease the mass, the volume within my body, so my body's not got as much of an issue in terms of like pumping blood around the heart. So that'd be the first thing that comes to my mind anyway. So yeah, see, that's a brilliant point, actually. I think that's one of the things about sleep across the board. People getting up to urinate, they are drinking too much water. So if your urine is clear, you're drinking too much water. Obviously, you don't want it dark. You need to drink more, but definitely if it's clear, that's too much. And you'll be flushing out electrolytes. You'll be flushing out all your minerals, and that's not a good thing to do. So let's have a look at this. This might be something you know more about than me, I think. Can you discuss the effects of fruit flavor vaping on carnivore low carb, keeping their carb cravings alive? Could this affect blood glucose or excess insulin secretion in the long term? That's a good question, because a lot of people do vape nowadays, especially like my sort of age group and below even. In my opinion, it's not going to make a significant difference on your blood glucose levels. Now, it could have an influence on insulin secretion if you're using that as some kind of way to, how to put it? I mean, if our brain recognizes we've got a sweet taste, whether it be a smell, anything surrounding us, which our body system can notice, is going to think, okay, well, that's interesting. I'm going to secrete an amount of insulin because I anticipate my blood glucose will be elevated. So what I'd probably say is, unless you're vaping an absolute metric ton between meals when you're not actually having nutritive food, I'd probably try and keep it or reduce it somewhat. That's my speculative thought. Personally, when I've sort of measured my blood glucose levels and vaped versus not vaped, I've not noticed a difference. But the confounding variable here, or I guess just the variable itself, is that I'm 100 odd kilos. A lot of women out there might be 50 kilos. So how that might transfer to a smaller human, I don't know. Then, of course, you've got the side of it where it could actually be better for you. I mean, if it's got nicotine in it, perhaps. I believe personally there is a dose of nicotine which is helpful. The administration method is very important, though, because it could be a net negative in the same kind of stance if you're smoking cigarettes, for example. But that amount is probably quite individual. I would think something below 10 milligrams of nicotine per day is about as much as you'd want to get the benefit without getting the side effects of, obviously, the the MPK stimulation, the elevated heart rate, the perhaps inappropriate cortisol response, things like that, maybe.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, yes, vaping is bypassing the cephalic phase, really, because there's no smell and there's no real taste that's going to elicit, a sweet taste. really that's going to do it. So I'm with you. I don't think it's going to affect blood glucose that much at all. But that is an interesting question, because I think the vaping side of things is often overlooked. And like you say about nicotine, I think people might be shocked that you believe nicotine can be beneficial, but there is a lot of studies about that, and there is a lot of talk that nicotine actually isn't that bad. So, yeah, thanks for that. That's really good. So let's do the next question. Oh, sorry, Jonathan.
I've not had any respiratory illness since vaping.
Right.
So it's a N equals 1, but I've heard of people say the same. Whether that's not that's just people trying to justify an addiction or something, I don't know. But that's what I've noticed. So
okay, let's have a look at the next question. I'm being very lackadaisical here. So where's the next one? Right, let's have a look. Biphasic sleep, I think the question is, what's your take on biphasic sleep? I always wake between 2 to 3 a.m. and it takes me about 2 hours to get back to sleep. Sometimes I never get back to sleep. Yeah, no carb Bob. I'm absolutely interested in this, because so much of the literature from ancient literature basically is referring to biphasic sleep in one way or another. The stories and recounting of actual events. That makes a lot of sense as well for tribes where people would have this, and I think this is borne out by teenagers and parents, that the older people would actually go to bed sooner, go to sleep sooner, and get up earlier in the morning, and then the teenagers would be later at night, even into the early hours of the morning, and they'd sleep later. But that makes sense from a tribal perspective, because there's always someone awake to protect you, so that's quite good. But also, I think, and I've started to instigate this myself, firstly, what Jonathan said about not drinking before I go to bed, which, makes me sound like an old fart, but that is true. I don't want to be getting up to urinate. But the second thing is, when I do get up, if I'm feeling really good and vital, I just sit and I just work. I don't actually lose any sleep over it. And it is very corny to say don't lose sleep over losing sleep, but it's so drummed into you that you need 8 hours. But sometimes I'll get up at 4 o'clock and I think, you know what, I feel pretty good. I'm actually just going to go and do something. And many people say, how do you get so many Substacks out? Well, that's my secret. I just get on with it. And also, I think, when you're a bodybuilder, you do things like power naps. That makes it sound like that's a pretty cool thing to do. But we're listening to our body. Animals, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're in the zoo, they have their feed, they lie under a tree and they just fall asleep. And, no one's saying to them, well, hang on a minute, your bedtime's 8 o'clock tonight. So I think just being a little bit more intuitive, although I do believe in the circadian rhythms, but I also believe in listening to your sleep signals. And if you've eaten a big meal and you feel like you need sleep, I think you should be able to do that. But I think sleep is fascinating. And if you're not sleeping very well, do all the things that you can do. Get out, do the early morning sunlight, try and see the sun setting as well, which is absolutely nailed on science. It isn't woo-woo. We know the science of how the light enters the eye, hits the rods and cones, makes the optic nerve either inhibit or excitatory, and then that goes down the grey lateral column of your spine off to the cervical superior ganglia, and that sends noradrenaline to the pineal gland, and you're going to convert tryptophan, 5-HTP to serotonin, then melatonin, and that's going to make you either sleep, or you're not going to be a production because the light is the inhibitory signal, or it's going to keep you awake. I mean, it's known. So I think doing those sort of things, although it sounds a little bit out there, actually it makes total sense, doesn't it? To actually look at the light outside and try and live around it a little bit. So if you can't get back to sleep, I would get up and do something. I really would. I wouldn't, unless you want to lie there, but I wouldn't worry, because if you lie there and you eventually go back to sleep and that works for you, that's good too.
Yeah, that's a good shout to you. I was quite thrilled to hear you answer it in that kind of way, because I've been doing this for somewhat intentionally nearly a year now. So I tend to wake up for about an hour or two. But so I've tried it all different ways. I've measured what metrics I can, like smartwatches, for what it's worth. What I personally found is I get a touch more sleep and sleep quality if I sleep biphasically. The caveat is, in that gap when I am awake, that hour or two, if I'm doing too much, I'm on my phone, watching it rather than just listening to a podcast, like wind me back down sort of thing. I've noticed that it really is a detriment. So for me, that's just what I noticed from my own metrics. It seems like you can't really out hack the light around you sort of thing. There is something to be said about the spectrum of light at different times of the day. But ultimately, that's what my body wants to do, so I don't try and force it. Like you said, Stephen, if I'm tired, earlier you sent me a message, I think about 3 o'clock. I responded I literally fell asleep. That was it. So I just listened to my body, and that's what I did. So I don't think there's a way out of it.
No. DC Rebuilding, don't forget to share and like good people. Thank you very much for that. I always forget, actually. I'm not very good at this social media stuff, so I should be better after doing it for so many years. But I just get into the conversations, really, and I just like what people have got to say. So let's have a look at this. This is from Just Sleep and Slim Down Journey. What's a handy tip to ease inflammation for those of us still suffering, even when eating carnivore? I'm finding mine is eased more on the GLP-1, but I'm back in a flare-up.
That's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great.
That is a very good question. Personally, I don't like that much the current GLP-1. A bit of a side talk here, but the way they've come out is deliberate. The way they're sort of evolving over time is deliberate. The best one that comes out will be out in 10 years' time. And that'll be a 4-proned agonist on 4 different receptor sites. They would have worked out the best way to create the chain of the GLP-1 protein peptide in order for it to have a precise action on the vast majority of people that have side effects within each subset of how each agonist is, essentially. So yeah, that's my stance on GLP-1 specifically. When it comes to like reducing inflammation, a lot of people will be against this, I guess, but I'd say just a fast is probably the quickest way for your body to get back to baseline. The only caveat, or I guess the contraindication to that would be if you're malnourished. Being more malnourished isn't going to help you, obviously. The other caveat would probably be if you've got any kind of heart conditions, anything related to your electrolyte balance as well. So that could be quite a temperamental thing. So you should do that under someone that knows what they're doing and has treated you or anyone with a certain condition with that kind of practice. So yeah, I'd say to fast, reduce the nothingness coming in, and the nothingness or badness that comes out will be a bit less, I think, so to speak. So.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, there are so many different answers to this about the inflammation, because there are so many different ways to possibly approach it. I mean, some people would say do a ruminant meat, lion diet, just lamb, salt and water, for instance. It's so contextual. This is the problem, isn't it, Jonathan, where we don't know everyone's diet. So it's a broad question, but I would look at problematic foods in inverted commas, because inflammation could be caused by eggs or egg whites. It could be dairy for some people. It could be pork for some people. Histamine load is another thing. Aged meats can be an issue for some people, or aged cheeses. So that's sort of what you could look at taking out or eliminating, which is, a lot of people say carnivore is an elimination diet. I suppose you could say that's true. Or you could look at what your inputs are, like omega-3, for instance. You could look at more fatty fish, salmon, mackerel, sardines, which would be a good way of doing that. Or you could look at fermented cod liver oil. There are so many things that you could look at. So, but I think, sleep quality, as we spoke earlier, that's going to help you reduce inflammation because of the knock-on effects of the good quality sleep. It's very repairing. Stress management, cold exposure. I think there's so many things, even just walking. It depends where the inflammation is as well. Nothing is better than walking for a bad back if you can do it. And a bit of backward walking is really helpful. So, it's a great question, and I'm sorry there's so many answers. One thing I would say is don't try them all at once, because you'll never know what worked. I think just try it and do one thing at a time, and you should be fine. So thanks for the question. That was really good. Right. Just sleep and slim down journey, getting their money's worth tonight with the questions, but that's fine. It may not be relevant, but why don't they still measure bloods in urine during annual test? I used to get tested and it was always high, but the moment I got diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, they stopped testing. Do you know what? I am going to answer this in a way that you can hear my annoyance with it, because the clinicians think once you've got chronic kidney disease, that's it, they know. So it's redundant. They don't care anymore. They don't need a urine because that's happened. And this is really annoying, because they just go straight for serum creatinine and the EGFR, which is terrible, which you get a cystatin C, and they look at electrolytes, and that's just a massive oversight. I mean, that's my personal opinion, because what does the kidney do? It produces urine. That's one of the things it does, so it's telling you what it's doing. And there could be problems from the kidney down the ureter into the prostate, or into the bladder. There could be problems there. There could be problems, so you've got pre-renal, intra-renal, and post-renal. So this is giving you everything. It's giving you so much more. So I'm with you on that. I think it's very frustrating. And it doesn't cost very much. It really doesn't cost very much. I've got urine strips here, and I can test my urine. There's 100 strips in there, so that they're 1p, no pun intended, I've just realised that, 1 pence each to test my urine. Wow. Maybe my sums are a bit wrong there, but it's 10 pence actually, 10 pence each to test my urine. So it's been a long night, by the way. So yeah, I think I'm going to use a phrase here. It's very technical. I think it's what's called lazy medicine. I think it's terrible. I can't actually dress it up any other way. I think it's absolutely awful that they don't do that, because it tells you so much. In fact, when we get people doing labs, I always say you could do urine analysis as well. And it's frustrating. It is frustrating. So good question, that. A very good question. So there was somebody asking, what made you take up vaping, Jonathan?
Yeah. So, funnily enough, it was a reverse gateway drug. So I was prescribed medical cannabis about 2 years ago or something. And what they did was they gave me a choice of 3 things: so a gummy, an oil, and like the flower, the stuff you burn, smoke. Anyway, I got given this bud thing to grind it up and buy a separate grinder and all this stuff. I felt like one of those sort of people. Anyway, it turns out I didn't like it at all. I hated it. I hated the smell, everything about it. Like, it wasn't enjoyable. It wasn't like pleasant. And I was like, surely I can just take the chemical itself in a gummy, in an oil, swallow it, not get the negative effects of stuff on your lungs and that. So yeah, it turned out you could. But I started to enjoy the habit of just smoking something. And you could honestly, probably, Stephen, you could give me a nicotine-free one with nicotine in it. I wouldn't even care. But yeah, nowadays I use like a 3 milligram thing, which is next to nothing. I think it's slightly more health protective than not. But it would depend who you're going to ask. We're not going to know for probably another 10 years, really, in terms of like long-term health outcome data, what's going to happen with people that do vape. The problem is as well, people do it like out of habit. So, rather than having food, maybe it's vaping. Maybe rather than chewing gum, it's vaping. So you'd have to have a cohort. Well, you'd have to have a free-armed study with different cohorts saying these people vape, these people chew gum, these people ate or drank or whatever it was that the bad habit, so to speak, was. And then you could really identify how much of it is them doing something they shouldn't do versus how much of it is something else. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's absolutely detrimental. I think for what I gain from it, it outweighs what I probably lose from it. And that keeps me mentally stimulated. If I'm tired from using medication, I can get a bit of nicotine in that helps with your focus a little bit. So yeah, it's probably not for everyone, but you know, we can't all live like Buddhas, and we know people out there, Stephen, that do live like Buddhas and they're not healthy. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not anti it or pro it. I'm very agnostic about it. One of the things that was at Keto Brain Health, which was really interesting, was many people were surprised that Ivor Cummins was vaping, and you know, he's a pretty much well-respected health guru. So yeah, I think that's just the way it is. Some people do believe in nicotine being beneficial, and I think there's lots of studies that prove that. And you're very, into it all. So yeah, I'm, like I say, I'm agnostic about it because I don't smoke and I don't vape. But then again, I'm very boring. I don't drink either. So I think I've been lucky. I think I've just been lucky to avoid that. So so 4 minutes left. I want to just thank you, Jonathan. We won't necessarily always do this on a Sunday because I see Andrew Scarborough saying it's a bit of a shame that I do this every Sunday at the same time. But and there's other live streams on, but I am going to stick doing this. But it's worked in my favor, really, that so many people watched the replay last week. I think we had 4,000 people watch it in the end, so I think that was really good. So this is still a very popular, it's the UK's biggest live Q&A, so I'm happy with that. And it was, I think it's a time that we need to stick to, also because I go straight from my Common Sense Carnivore group to this, and then we're going to do a welcome straight afterwards. So Jonathan, any final thoughts? Is there anything you want to tell people about that you're offering at the moment?
I'm looking for 2 more coaching clients. I'll say I'm very rigid, but people do get excellent results if they work with me. That's the thing. So I'm just going to put that out there for the moment. These places don't come freely. I do deliberately work for a limited amount of people. Other than that, I just wanted to thank you, Stephen, for your time. I appreciate all the work you put into all these podcasts, sharing things with people. Just from doing it myself to a similar level quite a long time ago, like maybe a year or 2 ago, I completely appreciate how much effort goes into it, and it's a lot of time management, and hopefully people see the value in it, because I certainly do. Whether I'm a guest or an attendee, certainly think it's a very useful resource for information, and the amount of content you put out on free resources is phenomenal. So
thank you
for that.
Yeah, and people here saying, can they ask questions in the comments when we watch the replay? Yes. If people ask me a question, that brings me to actually my Common Sense Carnivore group. One thing I'm going to guarantee is that if you join, you will get a reply personally from me. Definitely, absolutely, 100%. I won't use your email to sell you stuff. I'll only tell you about the live Q&As. That's it. The events are actually happening. That's all that's going to be going out as an email. So you'll get an email about the meeting tonight. You'll get one today about the meeting tomorrow. Simple as that. It's not used to flocky stuff. And thank you very much for joining. The people that have joined, 310 since 1st of January. Quite happy for that. And the link is in the description. I'm going to be over there doing a welcome to my group in about 1 minute. But anyway, enough of that. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help. Share it if you can. Go to Jonathan's channel, do exactly the same thing. Subscribe and like and comment, all of those things. Even if you put a bad comment, that helps us. I had someone
it helps me a ton. I get loads of them, guys. Thank you so much.
But it's engagement, and if you don't like it, that's great. Do make sure that you do subscribe. Thank you, Rick, for being here. It's really good. And YouTubers, thank you so much. And I haven't got an outro video that can beat the one that we did earlier. So anyway, let me just do it now. I'm going to set an outro video and let's play it. And hopefully I'll see you over in my Common Sense Carnivore.
I want myself.